Didn't even come close to the bonus I'd already earned, let alone the contract clause. No mention of wrongdoing. No admission of fault. Just a line about the interests of closure and goodwill. Greg scanned it and smirked, like someone watching a toddler try to bluff at poker. They're scared. They know we've got something. They just don't know how much. Good, I said. Let's keep it that way. Then, like fate had decided to send in the cavalry, I got an email from Frank Eldridge. Now Frank wasn't the type to make waves, and he still worked at the company. He was the quiet guy in finance who always had a spreadsheet open and a mug that said I excel at numbers. The only time I ever saw him raise his voice was when someone moved the shared printer without telling him. So when I read his message, short, clipped, and full of barely contained rage, I knew something was deeply rotten. Heard what happened. Got some things you might want to see. I was let go after raising questions about Q3 earnings adjustments. They're hiding something. Let me know if you're willing to talk. We met at a diner off the highway, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and waitresses who call everyone Han. Frank looked like hell. Eyes sunken. Tie askew. Fingers twitching against his coffee mug like they were still typing invisible numbers. They fired me 3 days after I flagged the 40s accounting entries, he said. Revenue recognition was all wrong. Deferred income was being dumped into Q3 to make it look like an immediate spike, for the bonuses. He nodded grimly. I tried to escalate. Got shut down. Then called into HR for a confidential review. 2 days later, I was out restructuring. He made air quotes so sharp they could slice bread. Then he pulled a flash drive from his pocket. These are the original projections I submitted before the CFO ordered revisions. I kept copies. Backed everything up to my cloud before they revoked access. I took the drive with trembling hands. This wasn't just a witness, this was corroboration. A second voice from the inside confirming everything I suspected and more. Frank could testify to the financial manipulation, the timing of the firing, the direct orders from the top to fudge the numbers. It wasn't just about me anymore. It never had been. David and his cronies weren't just greedy, they were dirty. I emailed Greg the files that night. This changes the calculus, he said after scanning the data. This isn't a lawsuit anymore. This is a nuke. If we go public, it could trigger an SEC review. The CEO won't let that happen. Not over David. Then let's make him choose, I said. We drafted a new plan. No slow bleed. No courtroom slog. Just one sharp surgical strike. A meeting. One room. David, the CEO, their legal team, and us. Greg called it a negotiation. I called it the slaughterhouse. Because we weren't asking for justice anymore. We were coming to collect. The conference room had the sterile, antiseptic chill of a surgical suite. The kind of place designed to make emotions feel out of place and humans forget they had spines. Polished glass table. Bottled water lined up like bullets. And 4 leather chairs on each side that looked far more comfortable than the situation deserved. I sat across from David. He wouldn't look at me, not directly anyway. He kept adjusting his cuff links, fidgeting with his pen, checking his phone like the next notification might bail him out of the trap he'd walked into, wearing a $900 blazer and the flop sweat of a man whose empire was about to implode. Next to him sat the CEO, Reynolds. Human iceberg in a 3-piece suit. The kind of man who never yelled but made entire departments vanish with a single memo. Greg sat beside me, calm and casual like this was just a Tuesday brunch. No tie. Sleeves rolled. A yellow legal pad filled with bullet points that would ruin careers. Let's begin, Greg said, sliding a flash drive across the table. The company's attorney, a woman named Janine with the energy of a disappointed ex-wife, plugged it into her laptop. A large screen behind her flickered to life. First item, Greg said, voice smooth. Performance documentation. 3 warnings. 1 performance improvement plan. 1 final review. All dated before my client's termination. All submitted by your team as justification for firing her for cause. David leaned back, smug returning like a rash. As they should be. She was insubordinate. Repeatedly challenged my leadership. Ask anyone. Greg raised a hand. We don't need testimonies. We have timestamps. He clicked a remote and the screen displayed a Word documents metadata panel. Date created, October 4th, 10:14 a.m. Ms. Lavin was terminated on October 3rd. This document didn't exist until after she was fired. And it's not just one. He clicked again. Date created, October 4th, 10:19 a.m. Another. October 4th. And another. All created within a 45-minute span the morning after termination. All backdated. All submitted as justification. Janine shifted in her seat. Reynolds narrowed his eyes, glancing sideways at David, who now looked like he was seriously regretting that third espresso. Greg continued, flipping to a new slide. Second item. Sworn affidavit from Mr. Frank Eldridge. Former senior finance analyst. Fired 3 weeks ago after raising concerns about the revenue recognition strategy used for the Fortis account. Reynolds' jaw twitched. This affidavit includes copies of the original Q3 projections and emails from your CFO ordering those projections be revised to reflect revenue in Q3 instead of Q4. Conveniently boosting profit just before bonus calculations. Also right before Ms. Lavin's firing. Greg leaned back, hands clasped. So let's summarize. My client secured a multi-million-dollar deal that inflated your quarterly profit. Then she was fired without cause. Then documents were forged to justify that firing. Then another employee was fired for questioning the very math used to hide this maneuver. Do you want to continue? Janine opened her mouth. Closed it. Then turned to Reynolds. David, he looked like he wanted to crawl inside his iPad. Reynolds stared at the screen for a long time. Then he turned his head slowly toward David. You told me this was handled. David swallowed. It was. I mean, I thought. Look, no one was supposed to get out. Reynolds said, what? I said get out of this room. Janine looked like she wanted to vanish with him but stayed seated. David stood, stammering, then scrambled for the door. He knocked over his chair on the way out. The silence he left behind was delicious. Reynolds turned to me. Miss Lavin, may I speak with you privately? Greg gave me a sidelong glance, nodded. Janine started to protest, but Reynolds cut her off with a hand wave. Just us. The room emptied like someone had pulled the plug on an aquarium. Just me and the CEO. Just predator and predator. The war was over. Now it was time to name the price of peace. Reynolds waited until the door clicked shut behind Janine before speaking. Didn't bother with small talk. No apology. No faux empathy. Not even a throat clear to soften the blow. Just corporate calculus with a pulse. You're not here to burn the building down, he said. You're here to get paid. I stared at him for a long second. Then nodded once. Correct. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. Thinner than I expected, but deadly in its precision. He slid it across the table like it was a menu and he already knew what I was ordering. Full 10% based on preliminary quarterly profit. Though final numbers may adjust slightly post-audit. You'll receive the wire within 3 business days of signature. Greg flipped it open. eyes scanning fast. Efficient. His eyebrows didn't move, which meant it was real. "Ende?" I asked, though I already saw them bulging from the last few pages like tumors. He nodded. "Included. You don't talk to the press. You don't talk to future employers. You don't talk at all." "And David?" I asked, tapping the table slowly. "He goes. Effective immediately. Official reason, breach of internal conduct policy." I didn't smile. I didn't need to. The satisfaction curled low and cold in my gut. Not joy. This wasn't joy. This was vindication distilled to its purest chemical form. The look in Reynolds' eyes wasn't remorse. It was asset protection. Damage-controlling cufflinks. I tapped the folder again. "2 conditions," I said. Reynolds didn't blink. "Go on." 1. Frank Eldridge. You're going to cut him a check. Label it consulting fee. You and I both know he deserves 10 times what I'm asking. But you're going to give him $250,000. And it's going to look like a good faith business transaction. Reynolds opened his mouth, then closed it. Done. 2. Maria gets a letter of recommendation. Anonymous source. But glowing. Personally guaranteed by you. No vague phrasing. No HR word salad. Something that gets her hired. "You're protecting your people," he said, voice flatter than Midwest topography. "No," I replied. "I'm punishing yours." Greg coughed softly to cover a laugh. Reynolds stood, adjusting his jacket. "My legal will finalize this by morning. You'll have final signature copies by noon." I stood too. 3 days. 3 days. We shook hands. His grip was dry and firm and utterly soulless. Greg and I walked out of the building like we were leaving a funeral with full pockets. In a way, we were. David's career had just been embalmed in a sealed manila folder. The reputation he'd built on theft and smarm had been reduced to a footnote in a sealed settlement. Outside, the wind bit through my blazer like static. But I felt warm. I hadn't just won. I'd rewritten the ending. And the best part? They paid me to do it. Wire hit at 9:07 a.m. on a Tuesday. I stared at the number so long I forgot how to breathe. 7 figures. Clean. Legal. Untouchable. A sum large enough to make my bank app freeze for a second like it needed to mentally prepare for the responsibility. I didn't cry. I logged into the hospital portal first. Mom's balance, zeroed out. Then the mortgage company, gone. Credit cards. Medical loans. Predatory short-term garbage I took out back when I was buying her prescriptions with a coupon and a prayer, wiped clean like a chalkboard before confession. It didn't feel real until I called her. She picked up on the second ring, already suspicious. "Did you do something illegal?" she asked. "Nope. Just outed a corporation into coughing up their soul." She chuckled. "Well, it's about damn time." We talked while I filled out a wire for Frank's consulting fee. He cried when I told him about it. Said no one had ever stood up for him like that. I told him to buy a new laptop. A real bed. And a 6-pack of something overpriced and fermented. Maria, meanwhile, got her letter. Reynolds didn't even try to weasel out of it. The man knew when he was bleeding out. She called me 2 days later. Same Thai restaurant. Same booth. Tears in her eyes and a job offer in hand. They said I was an asset they couldn't afford to miss. "You're right," I said. "Now go pretend you're not smarter than all of them. That's how you get promoted." I should have let it end there. But the truth is, some ghosts need burying in public. So I made one last move. On a quiet Thursday night, I opened a bottle of champagne that cost more than my first car and wrote a review on a certain job site. Not bitter. Not vengeful. Just observant. Be cautious of last-minute restructuring conveniently timed before bonus season. This company rewards loyalty with silence and profits with pink slips. Leadership prioritizes optics over ethics. And creative accounting isn't just tolerated, it's weaponized. No names. No lawsuit bait. But anyone with half a brain and an internet connection would know exactly who I meant. It went viral in a week. Got LinkedIn messages from strangers thanking me for confirming their suspicions. A recruiter even asked if I'd consult on toxic culture remediation. I said I was busy. And I was. Because I was sitting on the deck of a modest sun-washed beach house I bought in cash. Ocean view. No neighbors. Just me, mom on speakerphone, and the distant sound of seagulls fighting over a French fry. She asked what I was drinking. Champagne, I said. The kind you don't chase with Tums. What's the occasion? I swirled the glass, watching the bubbles climb. I read the fine print, I said. Then I used it to choke a giant. And I toasted to every spreadsheet. Every ignored warning. Every smug dismissal that led to this moment. Because some bridges deserve to be burned. And some exits deserve fireworks. You're the real MVPs of the office jungle. Thanks for watching. Smash that subscribe button, or the coffee pot might just forget your next brew.